Ready to go? All right, thank you. Welcome to the April 17th, 2023 meeting of the Public Safety Committee of the City of Plattsburgh, New York. The time is 5:04 p.m. We'll start with roll call. Councilor Vaughn.
Here.
Councilor Kelly.
Here.
Mayor Rosenquist. And Councilor Bob is present as well. We'll begin with the approval of the minutes. I'll take a motion for the approval of the minutes of the March 20th, 2023 Public Safety Committee. Motion from Councilor Kelly, second by Mayor Rosenquist. Any additions, comments, or deletions? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to item number 2, we have the various reports from the building inspector. I would request that we could discuss items 2.1 through 2.3 together as one meeting. Those are all the reports. Standard reports we get every month. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about what we got? Look pretty straightforward to me. Thank you.
Yeah, I will tell you with the unit report, we have solved that problem. It's basically just for this report, but the question of, I think you both had it at one time or another where it goes under 16 days open.
Right.
So we close it in Munis internally, but there's another step we have to take to close it in the report. So we know how to do that, and the person who does that was on vacation last week. So these reports will be more accurate in the future, but we close them out in general. So if you have a specific question about any of these, feel free to let me know. Thank you, Bill.
I didn't have any specific questions. It looks like the active control is doing good to take care of a lot of the kinds of things that people would call about, garbage in yards, things like that. So
Yeah.
very helpful.
There was one question.
Excuse me, but actually, if you hate to make it duplicate work, but if you did coincide them with these reports, it actually shows how they're closed out here.
Yep.
Sorry, Joe. There at one point, I know there were members of the council that were questioning or wanting to know more information on expanding the rental registry to 2 in 1 unit rentals in the city of Plattsburgh. Joe did some preliminary review of that. It would, of course, increase some staffing in his department. However, it is a standard approach for most municipalities who do have a rental registry to include 2 in 1 unit apartments. Or 2 in 1 unit rentals, I should say. So that being said, it certainly could be the next step for Joe's office to do some financial projections on what that may look like in terms of the expense and the revenue for the rental units that fall under those guidelines, and then come back with a potential proposal on expanding that program. Yep. Second to that, I know Joe has been doing a significant amount of work on the downtown garbage concerns. This is something that we brought up last year with trying to figure out, is there a better way to centralize garbage locations downtown, or garbage dumpsters downtown, or even individual 96-gallon units downtown. Not to say we have a solution for that centralized location, but there are other concerns that we have that we're answering regarding downtown garbage bin storage. And we should have something here in the next few weeks, I guess, too.
Yeah, so we're working with the planner on a long-term solution. We're working, fleshing out ideas on that. We have some immediate needs on some garbage. Actually, we just met with Casella this morning on the site, talk about better locations for the dumpsters that are down there now, so they don't get a parking space.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, especially in the upper Court Street parking lot, with the how densely packed in the residents and the businesses and the restaurants are, there really is a limited amount of space for these large dumpsters to be stored, and a lot of them oftentimes find them on the city property or in the parking space, which obviously that's problematic for a number of reasons, but trying to find some type of long-term solution for where dumpsters get stored and how they get stored and timing for them to be emptied and released.
Yeah, so I'm sure this is not a problem that's referred to the city of Plattsburgh for all downtowns. You know, the buildings are built right to the lot line, so there's no private property to put their garbage. Used to be in the old days, they kept it inside in the basement and had grates out on the sidewalk. They opened up the sidewalk, the grates from underneath, and those days are long gone. And, so, you know, it's just about finding the proper solution.
Well, and it seems like the timing to be looking at these solutions as we're looking at the downtown reconstruction, you know, with Market Street and everything like that, you know, it kind of makes sense for it to all tie together, because what if we had come up with a solution last year and then had all sorts of change and then, well, you know, we're kind of stuck again, so it's just a development.
Yeah, especially because there, like I noted, that there are some garbage bins that are actually sort of in the parking spot themselves, right, and that's, problematic into itself, but now that we're looking at these, parking spots as get every single one that we possibly can get to be available for downtown parking, it's critical.
They're gold.
Okay, any other questions, concerns for Joe today?
Does Joe know about our potential plan? Waive the park or waive the fee for parking spaces and table space for our downtown restaurants. Does
I'm not sure I know all the details about that.
I'm not sure I do either.
Okay.
But it was. Well.
I have heard that there would be prorated returns if they were completely eliminated.
We went to a meeting with several downtown restaurant owners and merchants, last Wednesday. And after that discussion, we felt, so perhaps the city can do something for these merchants to help them through this very trying time of
Okay.
you know, construction and whatnot. So we floated the idea, I guess, last meeting, finance meeting, was to eliminate the fee. You know, they're gonna have some partnerships.
Okay, well, we're starting to get applications in right now, so that's not a resolution as of right now.
Not right now.
The hope is to have it be a resolution Thursday, though.
Okay, so is it your suggestion that if I was to get an application in today, we would hold off on the fee until after?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sure that, I think we're probably leaning in that direction, so, based on the outcome of that meeting and the many concerns that were lifted, not just about the parking spaces being available, but also things like dust, you know, so even the sidewalk areas might not be usable on any given day, and all of the other complications, so.
Yeah. And, as Councilor Kelly and Councilor Bach was there as well, we said from the beginning that we needed to be flexible on parking and how do we enforce parking downtown with the paid parking scheme. And that flexibility is based on Matt Miller's recommendation is the postponing or the pausing of charging the kiosk fee for Arnie, Pavone and the Court Street parking lots in favor to convert those to 2-hour parkings. That being said, there is also the flexibility of the permits for outdoor seating. Now, Joe's office still has to do the inspection. It still has to go through the approval process. I believe that there's a $15 fee plus the fees for the renting of the spaces and the sidewalk cafe. So there's the different levels of fees there. It still is of the opinion, I believe, of the council to continue to charge for the expense incurred by delivering barriers. That's a separate expense from the actual permit part of it, but there's also the inspection costs that Joe's office will incur, which are part of what this fee structure provides.
I think the hope is just that will offset any potentially lost business. I mean, you know, I think the businesses down here are gonna get through this year, but if we can kind of reduce how much it hurts.
Yeah, help any way we can.
We got it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Joe. All right, moving on to section number 3. We have the police department report, so we'll start with items 3.1 through 3.2. We have our monthly parking violation bureau report, monthly call arrest and monthly animal dog control report, and monthly payroll and overtime report. So any questions or discussions about those items?
Yes, 3.4, I didn't understand it because obviously this is something that was done before me. It says an additional 1.5 or retro, or is that retro or additional? What is that exactly?
Julie, we weren't on 3.4 yet. I'll take a motion when we get to that one. We're just discussing the reports right now, 3.1 through 3.3. So just the police reports. We'll move on to the resolution next, but do we have any questions about the reports? Because if not, okay. So I'm moving on to item 3.4, the draft resolution. I'll take a motion for approval of motion from Mayor Rosenquist, second by Councilor Kelly. Okay, now discussion.
Okay. So this was entirely an oversight in the calculation for, officers between the years of 5 to 8. Everybody else, was covered in the agreement. The intention of the agreement as passed by council was to include these officers. I think we're talking about four officers in this group. That were missed out of this group of people. And all this item does is rectify that oversight. The oversight really was simply done based on the calculation that we created internally and then put in the contract and executed at the beginning of the year. And then some of these members injecting their paychecks are something's a little bit off here. It doesn't really make sense. You know, it's not what I expected. So we went back and did a recalculation and found that there was only 3 officers that this was missing out of, which would include a 1.5% increase to their base rate starting at the beginning of the year. I don't think the bottom number is in here. It's not in here, but I will send it to council. I think it's something like 12,000, something like that. Obviously budgeted for it.
Okay, so this was already budgeted for, it just didn't make it into the agreement?
Exactly,
Okay,
exactly.
do we have any further questions about this item?
Sorry, Julie, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just basically wanted to know if it was budgeted for it or not. That's.
I had the same concern, Julie, so thank you for raising that. Okay, so if there are no further questions on this. All in favor of passing this to the regular meeting of the common council? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, seeing none, this will move to the agenda of the regular meeting. Next resolution, item 3.5, we have the draft resolution to authorize budget adjustment, state aid for discovery purposes. I'll take a motion. Motion by Councilor Kelly. Second by Mayor Rosenquist. Discussion. So this is an increase because we got the grant. Okay. Great. That's a good thing. Any questions? Anybody else? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, no, seeing none, this will also move to the regular meeting. Next item, 3.6, discussion, body cameras.
Okay, so this is an item that came up obviously through the EO 203 committee sometime back regarding the city to explore the implementation of body cameras, officer worn body cameras. From that, there was a grant opportunity that was applied for by the city of Plattsburgh early in 2022. 21, sometime 21, right? It must have been late 21. Late 21, a state program came out to support the implementation, the initial implementation of body cameras throughout the state agencies such as ours. We applied for that, received $100,000, or were awarded $100,000 of state funding to support body cameras. Now, I feel like I'm more agnostic maybe on the implementation of body cameras in the city of Plattsburgh. I think it certainly doesn't hurt. I don't see any harm to it. It's, you know, I haven't vocally advocated for the city pushing for it. I know that there are a number of concerns in terms of logistics, operational concerns and oversight, as well as future expenses to maintain a system like this. Not to say that that should be not to say that that should be a hurdle to the city doing this, but it is something that I believe that the city should understand a little bit before going into it. With that being said, we did have a presentation around the same time from a vendor come in and say, this is what we provide, this is the expense, this is how much it would cost. over the course of the lifetime of the equipment. We had other vendors send over information on the same. With that, there's one particular local vendor who provides body cameras. Who could provide it within the means of the grant provided, but again, there are annual expenses associated. Depending on the vendor, there are gonna be different expenses associated to whatever platform we choose. Some are less expensive, some are more same, right? So that being said, the next item is the acceptance of the grant, and with the acceptance of the grant, there will likely be some level of implementation of body cameras if the council can accept the grant moving forward. It should be also noted that once you put body cameras on officers, you're never taking off. So you're looking at if the system that we go with is a 5-year system and it costs $80,000 to get started, cost of inflation over 5 years, we're going to be looking at $150,000 to replace that equipment, and then future years it's just going to escalate as it goes, unless it's a different technology that comes out. But that being said, this is something that we should be cognizant of going into this conversation.
I mean, do we really feel that this is a necessity? I mean, how many issues have we had where an officer's using excessive force, or there's been a questionable traffic stop or something like that? Is this really something that we need a necessity that this city needs to do? Do you feel that this is a necessity?
I would say it's like, is it a necessity? I'm fairly agnostic about it, right? I haven't been a strong advocate for or against it, to be honest. So I don't know if I would say that there's a strong need for it or a strong argument to have them. I think body cameras really are more about the extreme cases, not about the day-to-day incidences. Now, since
Right.
I certainly know of at least 2 or 3 incidences where a body camera would have been made crystal clear of what happened and why it happened. And had we had them at the time, it would have certainly answered a lot of questions for those 2 or 3 incidents. But I've been here for 2 years and a few months, and again, those are very extreme incidences. Now, I would rather have that information and that data and that video in those cases than not. But again, on a day-to-day, it's not like normal operation doesn't really call for it. But if you talk to the members down at the police department, it seems that the majority of them welcome them, they want them, right? So that's just what I'm hearing from Captain and Chief here.
Well, I understand. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stigma attached to, PDs everywhere right now. But what would this 100,000 grant cover? I mean, I know there's storage fees of videos and all that other stuff. I don't understand it exactly, and I haven't had a lot of time to look into it, but isn't there additional fees to store videos and stuff? I mean.
Julie, I think I can answer that for you. What the $100,000 would pay for basically is get the Plattsburgh City Police Department into the body camera program. Okay, I think the state has been pushing. That's why we got the grant so easily. The state has been pushing for all police departments across the state to be using the body camera.
Right, I read something. Yeah.
Pawtucket County or across the country, you're seeing the same thing. Now, the $100,000 we looked at 3 different programs. One is completely, I think, out of the question. It's the Mercedes-Benz, it's the state police use it, but for the city to go to that, it would be for a 5-year contract, it'd be $366,000 or $100,000 the first year, and then $70,000 to $80,000 a year after that. I think that's crazy for us to get into something to figure out how it works. The one that I'm looking at that I would recommend to get us into the position, $100,000 covers everything the first year. It gets us cameras and the radios that go with them, and it also gets us the cloud storage to upload the pictures. That's
Okay, okay,
So
All
the
right.
the recurring cost after that is gonna be a minimum of $13,000 to $20,000, depending on whether we have enough storage or not.
okay.
Thank you for that information.
Thank you very much.
I think part of the thing with the body cameras, Chris, like, sure, as you speak about, you know, on the day-to-day business, normal operations, they're not necessary. They shouldn't be, like, we, you know, hopefully we're not in situations where on the day-to-day, we have situations where we're like, oh, we should have a camera for that.
Yeah.
But I think what we're seeing in police departments across America and with all the increased unrest is that day-to-day operations are normal until they're not. And we have had those 3 incidents, and 3 incidents in 2.5 years may not seem like a lot, and luckily they didn't escalate to a level that did require major concern or major media attention, but it could. And, you know, as we see, the state police is, or the state of New York is advocating for this statewide, and also a trend that we are seeing across the nation. So there's also the likelihood and possibility that someday this will be a requirement or a very heavy expectation, in which case, right, so that's where the trend is going, and in which case we might not get a grant then. So a part of me is saying, we've got the $100,000, now's the time to seize it. If you're saying that we could be storing, you know, and managing our data for $12,000 to $20,000 a year for the safety that this gives us in terms of protection, for the optics, for the way that it would make the police officers feel like they have some, you know, the ability to verify what they need to verify, you know, I think it's certainly something that we should consider implementing. I'm gonna vote yes today, at least as far as getting it to the rest of the council for discussion.
Councilor Kelly, you have anything?
Well, we've been sued before because of police conduct. Do you know how much over the years we paid for that?
I can't tell you that, I've only been here a year, but I can tell you, in my 12 years as sheriff, we get sued at least once a year. You know, and most of the times, we won, but still not free. You gotta pay your lawyer, you gotta pay a settlement, whether we're right, wrong, or different, it costs money. And it's always gonna cost money for lawyers.
So with body cam evidence, perhaps streamline these cases and make them go faster so that we pay less.
Well, to give you an example, if we've got a defendant saying, your officer punched me in the face and beat the hell out of me. And it's one officer on one person. The public's gonna believe that our officer beat the hell out of him. But if my officer comes in, chief, that didn't happen, here's the video camera. The video camera shows that the guy come at him with a baseball bat. So he hit him to protect himself. That's gonna save a lot of problems right there.
Right.
That'll end it. That'll end it.
Yeah, so I agree with Councilor Bob that for 12 or somewhere between $12,000 and $20,000, it's not a lot of money.
To protect that liability protection, so to speak.
Okay, and I suppose that in 5 years from now, we decided, well, that body cam experiment sure was a great thing, but we don't really need it anymore. We can always, so the city can always decide to drop it.
They could, but I think once you get them, I think they're here to stay, Mike. And I think what the state is gonna make it do is gonna make it part of accreditation. And as you know, we're in the process of getting accredited. The Plattsburgh City Police Department has never been accredited. We're in the process of doing that.
Yeah.
And one thing before I forget it, I wanted to let you know that I heard from DCGS. I sent them an email yesterday
Oh, good.
about the staffing analysis, and I sent you a copy of it there, and he said they're in the final stages of review, so we should be getting it.
That's great news. Thanks for sharing that.
I'm pleased with it. I'm pleased with moving forward with body cameras. I think that members of the department would be pleased with it as well. And again, putting forth to the entire council to have a more broader conversation may be appropriate at this point.
It's gonna cause a lot more work for us, administration, and we're gonna have to develop policy. There's gonna be little hiccups along the way, but our police work, we'll have to figure it out as we go.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions about this particular item? All right, all in favor?
You haven't
Oh, this is a discussion.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, so now moving on to item 3.7, the draft resolution, authorized budget adjustment for state aid body cameras. Can I get a motion?
Okay.
Motion from Mayor Rosenquist, second by Counselor Kelly. Any discussion specific to the resolution now? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so this item will move to Thursday's regular agenda. Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank
Is that it, okay?
Yep,
Thank you, Martin. As soon as, I'm expecting the next week or so, it's,
that's great.
right.
All right, moving on to items 4.1 through 4.5, we've got the fire department. We'll start with the first two items, this is the monthly reports. We have the monthly EMS and fire call and monthly payroll and overtime. Any discussion on the two reports? Pretty standard, still looking pretty good.
See any new trends and polls this time? Any new structure fires, new fires, or increasing in polls?
Well, look at our EMS report, that trend, we are trending higher, from, we're under, just under 100 calls more year to date than we were 2022 this time, so, the fire report call volume that you have is actually from March 14th to the end, or, October, because we changed our reporting software, so it's kind of not a month. But if you look at department wide, as of this afternoon, we were 1,196 calls year to date. That's just over 11 calls per day average, which doesn't seem like a lot, but 75% of those are EMS, which are at a minimum half an hour, 45 minutes, if not greater, depending on the call and how busy the ER is, getting the vehicle in stock. So, all in all, we are trending all those continues to.
Any other questions about those? All right, so we'll move on to item 4.3. We have, starting with the draft resolution, authorize travel requests for the fire department. Can I get a motion? Motion from Council Kelly, second by Mayor Rosenquist. Any discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll move it to the regular meeting. Next, 4.4, draft resolution, approve the new city of Plattsburgh and Plattsburgh Professional Firefighters Association Local 2421 labor contract. Can I get a motion? Motion from Councilor Rose, or from Mayor Rosenquist, second from Council Kelly. Discussion.
As we discussed, in, the other day, as an overview of this contract, we have come to a preliminary agreement waiting for our respective bodies to approve the contract. It is a good contract, much like we did with the other units, ensure that the lower grouping of, staff or the entry level, that it's a little bit more attractive in terms of their pay. There's some organizational changes that needed to happen, some operational changes that needed to happen, but all in all, it's a good contract, very fair and balanced. Everybody gave up something, as most negotiations go. So I'm very happy with this contract. I do appreciate the council reviewing the contract. I know that there was one counselor who wasn't able to make it. We put that counselor directly in touch with the labor attorney to review those questions that person had. So that they can come prepared for the Thursday meeting, and then any questions that they may have on the floor, we can address those as well. But certainly would support and appreciate some support passing this agreement. This will be the last contract the city of Plattsburgh is negotiating from all of our units, so we will be all caught up. No more retro pay, no more that. This is it. We'll all be caught up on all our contracts.
I do have several questions. However, since I didn't get to see the old contract, I need to do that first to make sure that my questions are not going to seem, not caught up. They're not, I just want to make sure that I understand the then and the now. So if I have to, I will reserve my questions until Thursday.
And Julie, one thing that I think may be beneficial, because I think did you call in for that?
I don't think she got to call in, so I think that was.
I didn't get to call in. I was in the middle of nowhere and I could not, so.
So Julie, I think would be very beneficial if you could find some time to have a one-on-one conversation with the labor attorney who can answer every single question that you have about this contract and the former contract. And then any details outside of that, we can address on the floor.
Yeah, and Julian, she can point you to exactly what changed too, so that, you know, because there's a lot that didn't change, so that will help in terms.
A lot, yeah,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
okay.
So if we could, yeah, we can readdress those, any further questions on Thursday with the whole council, if that's amenable to you, Julie. Okay, any further discussion then on that particular resolution? Okay, so all in favor of moving us to the regular agenda for Thursday? Aye. Any opposed at this time? Okay, so we'll move this to the regular meeting, and then that brings us to our last resolution tonight, 4.5. Approve the memorandum of agreement between the city of Plattsburgh and Plattsburgh Professional Firefighters Association, local 2421, exhibit B of new labor contract.
Motion.
Motion from Mayor Rosenquist, second by Councilor Kelly, discussion. So this ties right into the other item. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So we'll move this to the regular item as well. All right, I think that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks.
All right, number 5, do we have any new business to come before this committee? I have something. So I just happened to notice, I know we're going into striping and painting and paving season. Happened to notice that City Hall Place where it meets Broad. Is it still City Hall Place there? The painting is, the yellow lines are basically completely removed.
The City Hall place, it turns into Turkey Street after
Right,
Brady,
Turkey.
and then Turkey into Broad.
Right, so we're-
That area there.
Where Durkee meets Broad,
Yeah.
the yellow lines are like completely gone, and it's kind of tricky there because right at that end, there's actually supposed to be a turning lane, like, you know, if you're going right, there's where you can go right and you can turn. So it's just getting a little hairy. I was there the other day and was like, oh, there's nothing visible basically, so I think that's an area that we want to make sure gets touched
So
up.
remind me again, because on Durkee and Broad, it's a Broad Street goes, there's no stop sign, there's no turn lane.
No, there's no stop sign.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Take it off of Turkey.
Under Durkee, you have to turn right or go straight and then, okay.
Right, or like-
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's technically like 3 lanes there and it's just,
gotcha, yeah, okay.
so that would be the one.
Okay, fair enough.
And I didn't have anything else, just that's what I noticed.
Okay, so there will be a resolution again, there'll be a resolution on Thursday's agenda for the parking lot changes, the paid parking changes to those parking lots indicated. There is also a question that Alicia has a draft memo to council in response to the 25 mph change. That will come out to you all as well, we can make a decision on that here shortly as well.
Great.
It will incur a cost, of course, when we have to change however many hundreds of signs, but that certainly supported in a welcome change, one way or the other. You will notice also, DPW has started to install the digital speed limit signs. We've got 2 up right now, as they'll start to come online and test them, make sure that they're operating correctly, and then we'll install the other 2 at those locations that we decided upon earlier. We're also waiting for the crosswalk signals as well, for those Broad Street locations. Which will go up and again be tested and installed.
I think that's great. I think these are some great strides in terms of pedestrian and car safety, so I'm excited about it. Okay, any other new business? Moving on to public comment. Do we have any public comment? Got somebody today.
Hi, councilors.
Hello.
Damien Gilbert, getting for Ward 2 citizen. I wanted to address a safety concern on the Stelzer Road. The traffic that's there is really high density, it's very fast paced. I almost got put there by a hybrid car because I couldn't hear it coming. I think it'd be in the city's best interest, after the guardrail, to have a speed reducer put in there that's retractable from April until October or even closer to November. I know it's kind of a hindrance for DPW to plow that area, and they have to use a 1/4-ton truck to get in that area itself. But even with that inconvenience, it shouldn't override safety. So if you have a chance, I would implore you guys to go down and take a look at this issue that's there. I believe it could be solved really well if you have a tractable speed reducer there that maybe you can take it out in those months. And not only that, during the winter time, the walk path that's there that goes around is So I believe it would be an asset to the city of that liability by having a speed reducer for that area.
Can you just repeat again, what was the street that you said?
And the one that's in the college. Yeah. And it goes right into South Catherine. It's a big cut road.
It's often used as a cut through when stoplight, Catherine and Broad are not favorable to the driver.
Okay,
Yeah, even if you were to reduce the speed down to 10 miles an hour, I don't think people are gonna follow it. By having a reducer there, I think it's gonna save somebody's life because after that guardrail, you can't put it into because the individuals have to have their trash removal taken away from there, so they have to put it out the curb. So I think by having that there to retract it, it could save somebody some injury or somebody's life. The other one I wanted to bring up is on Monty Street, where the curb is, during pickup and drop off hours for the kids at school. I know that there are no parking signs that are all over that street, but that one that's on that corner is really hard to see around, and they're coming either way on that, and it's so dense down that kids sometimes don't follow the crosswalk. And they're with their parents and they jet right out into traffic. So if when the PE is there, they can monitor that a little bit better to make sure that that curb is open, so you have direct line of sight. I think that would work as well.
It's also friendly, I know we typically don't interact with public comment, but there's also a responsibility of parents to not park in the main parking zone on Monty Street during pickup and drop off.
I agree.
Which is, continues to be a problem. Now, I have last year, I use more colorful language when I'm not online, but got some talking to by some parents, by sending folks out there and say, please don't park in the no parking spot during pickup and drop off, because it is a safety issue. That street's very narrow. You got parents parking on both sides of the street sometimes, and it's problematic, and having officers moving cars along gets a lot of pushback, so it's gotta be responsibility both ways.
Without setting the outlet part for the whole community, especially more to the other works, because they all point to money other than Oak Street, is that but that area, even having it just parking on one side would cause a problem because there isn't enough parking, even though that they expanded that lot toward our house that was there. But it's still maybe in the best interest to consider that as well too. That way it opens up that area and you only have one sign, but they'll be parking there all the way down to the end of that street. But I wanted to make that little safety advisements to you. The chief is gone, but I wanted to bring this up during public speaking, that how much of an amazing job that I believe that he did and his officers on the school incident 3 weeks ago. I have 5 kids that go to school all over, or 4 now, one's in college. But I thought it was an amazing job that they had a response time of 5 minutes or less there. So I didn't know if anybody addressed it, but I think they did a really amazing job on that.
thanks for bringing that up.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Mayor.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, any public comment online? Okay, so seeing none, I will now take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion from Mayor Roscoe, second from Councilor Kelly, all in favor? Aye. All right, thanks so much, everybody have a great night.